just going to say a few words on what he meant to me. Obviously, this is fresh. Just getting this news last night from his wife. And this is a man that we had the pleasure of working with for the last year. A lot of us got to know him personally. I knew him personally too for the last 12 years. When I think about Mike Lamb, I go back to when he was the meat director of King's. And I was a young buck starting out in this industry. I know some of you may have heard this story, but I'm going to say it again for anyone who hasn't, and just because it's the right time. But starting out, I was in my early 20s at OMNI Food Sales. I was surrounded by Jimmy Aiello, Rich Anderson, Jimmy McNicholas, Barbara Sarner, other veterans that have been running OMNI for 15 years together. And here I was, a young kid, the boss's son, trying to learn the business and also trying to contribute value to what was going on. And with those people, it was very hard because they were so good at what they did. So they gave me the accounts that we didn't have a lot going on at, and that was King's. So there wasn't a lot to screw up. And Mike Lamb was the notorious meat director at King's. Rich Anderson told me, Zach, I call on Mike, but he's super busy. You won't get him, but good luck, you can try. So being the little man on the totem pole, I set out to try to prove to the team that I could bring something in, that I had value, that all these people that were doing this for such a long time and didn't need me, I want to show that I could bring something. So I went out to my desk and I would email Mike Lamb religiously, daily, weekly. I would call him weeks, months on end. Never got a response. Kept doing it for months. Tried calling early. I tried calling in the middle of the day. I tried calling late. Didn't work. A few months in, like 8 months in, finally get him on the phone. It's early in the morning. And he's upset. He says, what do you want? I say, I'm Zak Romanoff. I'm from OMNI Food Sales. I'd like to come and present you some items. And he says, listen, I'm really busy. If you want to come meet with me, be here next Wednesday at 7 a.m. I've got 5 minutes, not a minute more. I said, okay, I'll be there. So King's office was in Parsippany, New Jersey. Got all my stuff ready. Got up early, made that long drive. Was there at 7. No one else was in the building. Mike Lamb actually had the key to open up the King's office. He was the first man in. And he let me in. We sat down in his office. And he rapid fire quizzed me. What's the cost? What's the retail? What's the SRP? What's the retail at competing accounts? All these other questions to see if I had my numbers straight. And I did. And those 5 minutes continued for another 5 minutes. And then for another 5 minutes. And then we started to get to know each other. And those 5 minutes turned into an hour and 45 minutes. And him and I had put together authorizing 6 new items. He was setting up the codes in the distributor, told the distributor when it was coming, how much was coming with a distro. And I left the office that morning as a hero. I was getting all these items authorized. But Mike Lamb tested me. He saw that I could stand up, and I passed the test and I won. And that started a fruitful relationship for both of us where, without saying it, he unofficially took me underneath his wing. And he mentored me and guided me throughout the years. And as a young pup, trying to learn on the fly with such veterans that didn't need me, I needed all the help I could get. And Mike Lamb gave me that. And we talked formally and informally there for years. And principals saw a lot of value in me because they didn't have to go to King's to get things done. I went with Mike and got them done. My team looked at me and said, how'd you do that? Mike Lamb doesn't meet with anybody. But him and I did. So he was one of my earliest mentors. You hear a lot about Jimmy Aiello, right? We're going to be talking about him soon. Mike Lamb was right up there for me. You know, we all need mentors in life. Whether you're proud and don't want to admit it or not, you're smart, you'll admit it. We all need mentors in life. Family, friends, colleagues, professionals. That man showed me love. That man showed me love. Even once he retired from Kings, he still stayed in touch all the time. He was always friendly, always offering advice, always willing to talk for a long time. We all know Mike. He's willing to talk to you for a long time. And then 5 years ago, when I began to post online, had this idea for what is the network and sharing what OMNI does day to day on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, started posting. And I'll tell you all, yeah, I've spoken 12 times publicly and we're getting a lot of new business and there's an impact in the industry right now. 5 years ago, it wasn't the case. 5 years ago, I was putting posts up that were getting 0 likes. Sometimes they would get 1 like. It was from Mike Lamb. He liked everything that I put out. Not only did he like what I put out, he would send me messages telling me things. I went back and looked at some of his messages. It's from years ago. Zak, you are the clear, concise voice of what a successful vision and execution can be in the marketplace. I'm visiting YouTube more. You better pinch yourself every day to remind you how lucky and blessed you are. You are living the dream, plus growing OMNI at an incredible rate. The flywheel concept and the level 5 leader. Someday a book. More recently with the brand advocate line coming out. Can't wait for these threads to arrive. Gotta rock the whole look. Gotta practice my OMNI swagger. Alternating the black and gold. This man just had everlasting enthusiasm. You know, Mike probably had reasons to not be enthusiastic every day. Probably more reasons than all of us here. But he didn't tell us about any of them. I never heard it once. Literally forced out because of a shoulder surgery is how he found out this other stuff and then was forced out of work. The Meat Racket, I hope y'all enjoyed reading it. I remember sending the book out to everyone. And after sending it out the next week, talking not even 7 days after, talking with Mike on the phone, and he said, Zak, I'm really enjoying the book. I said, we just sent it out. I'm impressed you started reading it already. He said, Zak, I'm on page 278. And I knew Don Tyson. And I'll tell you all about Don Tyson. When they came and presented me, they didn't care what the cost was, what the profit was. They would just do whatever to make a deal. He said, we'll worry about the price later. And then he went on to even say, we should read Vicious Circles next. He was an invaluable resource to me. All the support and encouragement, checking in with me every day, not even for anything. And the conversations were probably the easiest that I've had with anyone. There was no ego. He showed me pure love. He had a lot of admiration for this team, for this crew. He told me that on more than one occasion, how special of a group this is. And he had been around a while. He'd been a part of a lot of different groups. Throughout the industry, Mike is a legend. He's a legend. There are legends in this food industry. He was a lifer. He's known by a lot of people. He was a fountain of information. I'm not insecure enough to admit it, that Mike Lamb educated me up until our last conversation. All right? If you're smart, you'll learn from other legends that are on this team now. He's not the only one. This team has more legends on it. But this man was so generous. I would often have to cut our conversation short, because if I just let him go, I wouldn't get any other work done. I don't want to be rude, because he was educating me. And how many people hog information to themselves out of fear of sharing with other people and seeing what they might do with it? Mike Lamb proudly shared everything that he knew. And shame on you if you weren't wise enough to listen. He made me a better leader. He made me a better salesman. He made this team better. His sense of humor. Not many people can take the complex terms of this industry and then spin humor on it. But Mike did. And you had to really pay attention to catch his jokes, because he was so sharp and so witty. Really good. I mean, really. This is a huge loss. The world suffered a huge loss. The industry suffered a huge loss. OMNI Food suffered a huge loss. His family suffered a huge loss. This was a really special person. This is someone who definitely made his presence felt, and he showed love to others. I'm telling you, this was a special man to me. And we're recording this. I want his family to see it. I'm going to send this to his family. I want his kids to know. And we're going to celebrate his life. We're going to figure out a way to market and make it special, just the way we're celebrating Jimmy. We're going to do the same thing with Mike.